The following video is extremely informational, extremely important. It's going to let you know exactly where your country is heading. May not be there tomorrow, may not be there next week, may not be there for 2 or 3 or 4 years. All I know is absolutely positively, history is our guide. History tells us what the future is. The old saying, if you want to know the future, simply learn history. You will know exactly what's happening. And one of the ancient, not necessarily ancient, but we'll call them ancient, civilizations known as the Romans, specifically 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire, greatest technology, greatest socialization skills, just education, everyone was it was just great. It was a feat of its time and just incredible. And they came crashing down due to one thing: unfunded liabilities, unfunded handouts. Make promises now, promise pensions, unfunded liabilities. We know we can't pay it, but we'll let someone else deal with that later. We want to get elected. We want this job bad, so we'll tell these people anything, and we'll give them their pensions to start with. And then shortly after that, it's not going to go too well. Having said that, I'm going to start off with a story that just came out. Syracuse, New York is headed for bankruptcy without a shadow of a doubt. Not only is there a quota official denial, everything's fine, no, we don't need it. But the mayor of Syracuse is seeking legal guidance on municipal bankruptcy. You mean another one? Just like old Jay Snip and a lot of the others said would be coming? Pfft, absolutely. Now, if your head's in the sand, this may sound like news to you. If it's not, you could be on here right now doing the same video I'm doing because you know this is going to happen. And here it is. Once again, public union wages and benefits, especially police and firefighters' pensions, are smack in the midst of it. Please consider this news headline, which I openly mock this person. Expert says bankruptcy for Syracuse unlikely, but mayor should explore option. Kind of reminds me of the Spanish government. We're fine. Greece is one thing. Even Portugal, that's another thing. Over here in Spain, we're fine. And as he's saying that on Jay Snip 4 in his laundry room and in his car, he's lying through his teeth. He just got done saying they're fine because Greece and Portugal in the news. Do not listen to him. They will be in the same boat in a little while from now. Fast forward to today, a little while from now, from then, etc. So this bozo expert, full of crap. Why? Because of unfunded and not able to be funded liabilities. While the financial situation in the city of Syracuse hasn't, and by the way, at the end of this little reading story of mine I'm giving you here, I'm going to walk you through the history of the Roman Empire with a phenomenal history lesson for you that I've actually done a long time ago in another video, way before I had hardly any subscribers. And I'm going to do the same thing again now, and this is extremely important because this isn't like a what if. This is exactly what happened then, and it is exactly what's happening now. Both the money being devalued and how it ties into unfunded liabilities and how it ties into wars to try to fund things, etc. Same thing. The signs of the city's financial problems have been evident for several years as city employees accept wage freezes and fire and police departments see staff reductions. The city will use an early payment from Albany, thanks Albany, to help keep the budget from dipping into dwindling reserves. Skyrocketing pension and health care costs paid by the municipality, of course, continue to be a problem for the city budget. Without pensions and without those health care costs, not a problem. Roman Empire, same problem. Bankruptcy isn't the answer. It's not like we sort of restructure and become a different city, said Professor of Economics and Senior Associate Dean Maxwell School of Syracuse University, Michael Wazelenko. The mayor's office says it is also learning about what a municipal bankruptcy would mean. following places like Stockton, California, who made that move. The state has invoked a financial control board before, currently in the city of Buffalo, twice previously in Yonkers, and once in New York City. You don't suppose they're going to be revisiting that again, do you? No, nah, no way. Now for the history lesson. History is a catalog of solutions. However, it is also a catalog of things not to do. Far too many people just ignore the past and assume there is nothing worthwhile even taking a little peek at in those old history books. Oh, don't worry about it. This is then. This is now. That was then. There's no way we would repeat things. No. This is why history repeats. Oh, it did say that. This is why history repeats. Largely because of the arrogance and ignorance of mankind in assuming he is better than all those who preceded him. Not on my watch. There won't be those things happened before. Bankers were hung. Bankers were killed. Ain't gonna happen in our time. We'll just keep raping and pillaging the population. This is a different time. We think we got this under control because we have all of our stooges in political positions and law enforcement at the highest level positions. They'll never go after us. But history shows that they never did go after you back then either. It was the people. And when the people got a hold of you, it wasn't pretty. But you're not worried about that. Oh, all right, okay. I have been often asked why, and this is not my writing. Some of this is my pitching out, but not all of it. I have been often asked why I came to see the world through an eternal battle between private and public interests. In other words, people versus the government. Effectively, aside from the fact that we invented the combustion engine, discovered radio waves that also enabled the development of computers, there is little else that is really a modern invention. Right down to the form of government we have, which is a republic based upon Rome rather than a democracy based upon Athens. This is not a modern invention. A republic is where we elect representatives to run government. In a democracy, every citizen has the right to propose laws and sits in judgment over the affairs of the state. Rome had its Senate, as does Washington. You probably even think that to get a government pension, you had to work for 20 years is another modern socialistic benefit based upon Marx. Wrong. Actually, that would be completely wrong. It was a Roman tradition that was used to entice people to sign up for the military, just as today people work for the government to eliminate any real risk or responsibility. For whatever reason, that ancient tradition of 20 years of service remained an unexpected benefit if you were to work for the government that has been handed down through the centuries. However, the socialists have simply ignored the lessons of the past and adopted the very same pension programs that truly contributed massively to the decline and fall of Rome. Economically, it was precisely what we see today in our own society. Today, what has emerged as the government employees versus the people, such as in Greece, Spain, etc., and recently France, who were shooting shotguns at police the other day, buildings on fire the other day, and have you really heard any about this on our mainstream other than a little blip here or there? Everything must be fine in France. Incredible. So the same trend is in effect everywhere. Greece is merely a test run for what we will soon face in virtually all governments. Quote, unfunded liabilities, and or also known as unfunded entitlements. The above, well, he has a chart. It's not. I'm not. No point in showing it. Shows the Roman military from about 700 BC through the entire life of it, through the fall of it as well, which was in 476 AD. and showing the decline that became dominant in the East under what is known as the Byzantine Empire. This created the same problem we face today: unfunded pensions and entitlements. It seems to be inevitable that government promises the moon but never delivers. It may shock most readers to even assume that such data exists. Prior data, historical data. It's right here in your face. No one wants to read it. But I'm going to read it to you tonight. This is one of the most important videos I've ever done. If you think there's a sliver of hope that we'll get through this, the American dream's coming back. Listen, I want to believe and hope that too, but I have reality, realist news, and history. I'm going to read you the exact history that you cannot even argue with a tiny bit. This is factual, in the books, records. The Roman Empire were phenomenal back then for keeping records, history. We get to read and see that stuff today. Thank God, because if they didn't, I wouldn't even be able to read you this. We wouldn't know that the pension system was 2,000 years old, and it caused the collapse of the world's most powerful empire. And today we're the most powerful empire. We also have that system. We also have unfunded liabilities. And we're also devaluing our currency. Again, you look at the last 100 years, it's devalued, and we're getting ready to do a worldwide known devaluation where the government comes out and says we're devaluing the bonds or the dollar. It's coming, and it'll be here soon. It seems to be inevitable that the government promises moon. Okay, I've been through that. It may shock most readers to even assume that such data, historical data, exists. In reality, there is far more data available on the rise and fall of Rome than there is during many medieval governments. The Romans were great secretaries, and much of the early writings of many contemporary historians have survived. The coinage that has survived is truly amazing. Because of the political uncertainty and wars, people buried their cash for security. Wait a minute, they didn't put it in an account? They didn't buy stocks and bonds that other people control that could go to zero? Or they kept it on their property and buried it? Same as me telling you right now, like I'd say 1,000 times, get your physical silver in your hands, put it in a safe, whatever, put it on your property, in your possession. That's funny. 2,000 years ago, bozo Romans, like me, the bozo on YouTube, yeah, the bozo conspiracy Romans were burying their gold while it still had value and was being devalued before it got worsely devalued, if that's even a word, worsely. You get the point. They were burying that wealth they had then because they were watering down the coins back then, steady and surely. Having said that, let me continue. The coinage that has survived is truly amazing. Because of the political uncertainty and wars, people buried their cash for security. Same as what I just said. This is why you need to collect gold and silver right now. This has resulted in astonishing hoards that have been found even today. This provides a snapshot of the money supply throughout the course of the years and gives us solid records as to the number of dies involved in striking the coins, since each die is hand carved. In other words, when they mint the coins, that thing that slams into the coin, that's the die. This is known from studies to recreate the striking of coins in modern times to establish this understanding of money supply. For example, Britain. There was the largest hoard of Roman coins ever discovered in July 2010. This pot contained 52,000 coins. This was truly an amazing find. In December 2008, the largest find of Byzantine coins, 264 in total, was discovered in Jerusalem from the 7th century. Hoards clearly increase during periods of political instability, reflecting the same human reaction we witness today during economic declines. People begin to save more and curtail their spending whenever their future becomes uncertain. So it matters not what period we are looking at. Human reaction is always the same. These hoards provide important data over the course of centuries and have filled in a tremendous amount of data from which to build real, viable economic models from. Of course, we don't learn our lessons and we use the same crap. Historians have also recorded wages. So we have far more statistics than most people are familiar with these days. This allows us to look at not just wages, but the unfunded pensions that were promised to the military. Now, I'm going to butcher some of these Roman names, so bear with me on that. Cassius Dio wrote about 80 books covering the history of Rome, AD 155 to about 163 or 164, to after 229 AD. Historians have generally agreed with him that the peak of the Roman Empire took place during the reign of Marcus Aurelius, which was 161 to 180 AD. And by the way, my nose is itching, my voice vibrating, it's killing me right now. Cassius wrote, quote, "Our history now descends from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust, as did the affairs of the Romans of that day." That's what he wrote back then. While I have shown this chart many times, what I have not explained is the single largest reason behind the debasement of the currency. True, it was Augustus from 27 BC to 14 AD who first established a personal guard known as the Praetorian Guard, which he paid at twice the wages of the regular army to keep him safe. They were to be in a constant state of readiness to protect his person, him, and to ensure that any rebellion would be crushed. However, the people would not tolerate kings or a police state. Let's see, presidents, Secret Service, and now Department of Homeland Security. Massive ammunition purchases recently by the Department of Homeland Security. Wonder if they're getting ready for a quote, to ensure that any rebellion would be crushed. No, probably not. However, the people would not tolerate kings or a police state. Ultimately, they had enough. Thus, the number of Praetorian Guard within the city walls was limited to just 3 cohorts, which during the early Republic was approximately 480 men, and during the 1st century AD had become 800 men. With the murder of Commodus, 180 to 192 AD, and the auctioning off of the office of emperor, so to speak, by the Praetorian Guard, who saw themselves as above even the army, the decline and fall was in full motion. And when he says auction off, what he's talking about is who's the highest bidder that's going to pay us the most. Whoever it is, you're the new king, you're the new emperor. That's what happened. The civil war that was unleashed necessitated the victor, Septimius Severus, from 192 to 211 AD, to sharply increase the pay to the soldiers and to relax their discipline to secure their favor. A vicious downward spiral unfolded. The greater the threat of political instability, the higher the military pay had to rise. This expanded the cost of government and facilitated a spiral of inflation, forcing the government to debase the coinage to increase the money supply. The decline and fall of Rome was driven by the unfunded guarantee of pensions, and just like Social Security today, there was nothing actually put aside. They've been taking the money since day one. It was always assumed that the state would be able to fund its promises. Sound familiar? During the Republican days, 25 denarii paid 52% of the cost of his family's annual needs for grain. By the 3rd century AD, it took 6,000 denarii to create the same standard of living. Inflation was the result, not the source, which was the fiscal mismanagement of Rome. 25 denarii paid 52% of the cost of his family's, of basically a family's annual needs for grain. By the 3rd century, it took 6,000, not 25, 6,000. Under Julius Caesar, hey, we've heard that story. I did little plays in school. But that's funny because none of the damn plays in school had anything to do with anything I'm reading you or about to read you, which is actually probably the most important part of the Roman Empire, but we're busy at school talking about how he was killed and et brute. With a stupid little saying, oh yeah, we have a little play and he's going to stab him, and Romeo, Juliet, Julius Caesar, all this nonsense. That's history. That's what the school tells me history is? Sheesh. Under Julius Caesar and Augustus, they established new pay standards where donatives, or bonuses, I love bonuses, to the military were paid in gold auri. Such donatives, bonuses, paid to the troops were actually the spoils of war. So we had to go to war in order to pay that back then. And wait a minute, we haven't been going to war the last 10 years in all kinds of different countries, have we? Setting up shop, putting up oil rigs. And again, the big war is coming soon. History? No. Let me keep going. This gradually... Okay, so the bonuses paid to the troops were actually the spoils of war. This gradually was transformed into expected benefits, even when there were no spoils of war. They automatically expected this. We expect our bonuses. We don't care if there's a war or not. See how that works when you start to give handouts? Hey, they expect it. Who the hell wants to work? I'm getting handouts, and when it goes away, they're going to revolt. Tiberius and Caligula transformed bonuses from rewards paid out of booty or plunder into regular bonuses. Now you know why they got hired into the emperor position. When a new emperor came to power, they bought the loyalty of the troops, paying a bonus upon their ascension to the throne. Each of these emperors would pay bonuses of 50 million denarii by matching 25 million denarii in testamentary gifts of his predecessor. Now, the praetorians regularly received 10 gold auri. The other troops in the urban cohorts were paid half this amount. The regular army legionnaires received about 3 gold auri each. Claudius in 41 AD paid the Praetorian Guard 150 gold auri per man after the assassination of Caligula. The Praetorians thus received about 35 million denarii, and the rest of the army was paid nearly 50 million denarii. This was a vast amount of money to secure the political stability after the death of Caligula. These levels of bonuses, they're actually called donatives, were becoming expected. In 54 AD, Nero offered similar donatives, bonuses, on his ascension to the throne, and upon his assassination in the midst of the now civil war, the contender Vitellius promised to enlarge Praetorian Guard bonuses totaling 88.8 million denarii. Under the Flavian emperors Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, they sought to reverse the trend, reducing the size of the Praetorian garrison of Rome, and imposed strict limits on imperial donatives bonuses in an attempt to restore imperial fiscal solvency. Let's tighten our belt. This is unsustainable. We got to rein this in. That's what they tried. That's what it says there. With the reign of Trajan, 98 AD to 117 AD, the conquest model was reestablished. He launched the invasion of Dacia into the Balkans. This greatly increased imperial revenues once again, and there was also then the exploitation of the new mines in those regions. This increased the money supply, but it was also like a pauper winning the lottery, a peasant winning the lottery. The ceremonial gift giving came back in full force and once again became institutionalized. Between Nerva 96 to 98 AD and Commodus 180 to 192 AD, there were no less than 45 separate bonuses, donovans, totaling at least 567 million denarii, or 22.6 million auri, according to surviving records. This is pure simple history, can't argue with it. Surviving records state this. Upon the assassination of Commodus in 192 AD, the Praetorian Guards had become so corrupt that they now auctioned off, so to speak, the throne to the highest bidder. That most unfortunate soul only reigned for just a few months. He was Didius Julianus, who promised a bonus of 25,000 sestertii to every man, or 6,250 silver denarii and 250 gold auri. Upon his ascension to the throne, he instantaneously debased or devalued the silver denarius from 87%, just a little bit, down to 81.5% fineness, purity of silver, as the weight declined from 2.75 grams to 2.40 grams to pay the bills. The civil war that was unleashed with the death of Commodus brought Septimius Severus to the throne. This new dynasty, over the course of the next 43 years, distributed 12 bonuses amounting to at least 431 million denarii, or 17.2 million auri. Bonuses to retain power to the urban plebeians reached almost 1 billion denarii, or 40 million gold auri. The amount paid to the legionnaires was at the same level. The finances of Rome, paid to the government employees, bankrupted the state, for they did not produce income, but rather consumed wealth. All these government entities, all these government agencies. Problem there, new regulatory agency, so this doesn't happen again. Then it happens again. We need to expand the regulatory power. Then it happens again. We need another agency on top of this agency, on top of that agency. See how that goes? They consume wealth, they don't produce it. This is the difference between private workers and those employed by the government. One person produces economic growth, while the other is a public servant consuming the wealth generated by others. The inflation that was unleashed by the debasement of the currency was unprecedented historically. To put this in perspective, at the time of Julius Caesar, when he was rising to power, he was funded by the richest man, Crassus, in Rome, of Spartacus fame, by the way, whose wealth was placed at 200 million sestertii. That was a sum equal to 50 million denarii, or 2 million gold auri, by the mid-3rd century. Denarii was, or that was it. By the mid-3rd century, denarii were bronze and were reduced to at best 1/50th of its former value. I'm telling you right now, it ends the same way. How do you know for sure? How do you know for sure, J Snip? Because I got a history book. In history books, at least the ones our government don't provide us, such as this archaeological evidence that's used as a history book, so to speak, I know that's what history says happened. And I can clearly see it is identical to the happenings right now in America. By chance, is that Roman Empire trying desperately to expand the money supply, devaluing everything, except we think we're smarter. We're going to control all the other things that would inflate in price as we do this. And we'll control it through this thing called the stock market, the commodities market. Except at the same time, we're telling everyone who's involved in those, you won't get your money back, we're stealing it. So there's not going to be anything left of that market. Therefore, you're not going to be able to set the prices with that market sometime in the near future. And the real prices come out for everything. And then it's, oh my God, we're in deep trouble. Roman Empire repeats. And I'm almost done, by the way, a couple paragraphs. The debasement in Rome was widespread. He says, I'm not going to show it. Here's a table illustrating the debasement of the provincial currency in Egypt at the time. Here we see that the decline from 13.22 grams, again, of silver, was, again, debased into 7.47 grams, 13 to 7. By the finest, and the fineness of the silver declined 16.5% down to 0.5%. This was all driven by the rising cost of government employees and the unfunded liabilities of retirement at 2/3 of their base pay. Or not based, but their base pay. Wow. Consequently, we have a lot more in common with Rome than meets the eye. The cost of government destroyed Rome. The same problem of unfunded liabilities is precisely what is undermining our future. There could be a resolution, but it will take serious reform, and there is just no appetite for that in Washington at this time. Can't get reelected with that. Thus, identifying the problem is critical. This is the primary problem we face. Unless we deal with this issue, we are doomed. We can argue about the Federal Reserve, the gold standard, and a whole host of other issues, but those are nothing in comparison to this single issue of unfunded liabilities. We go back to a gold standard, it doesn't change unfunded liabilities. We can cut spending and yell and scream all you want, but that will not solve the problem, for you cannot cut enough. Every penny cut will only be replaced with spending on promised entitlements. End of story. There you have it. Roman Empire 101, Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. Brought to you by your history teacher today, J. Snip 4. As I read that, sure it was, ancient, 2,000 years ago, but you can clearly see, oh my God, we're doing the same thing. The only thing that has changed is technology. So while someone may argue, well, the Roman Empire was around for a few hundred years, several hundred years. America's what, 200 years old roughly? Pfft. Come on, we got plenty of time. As technology increases, everything else in the world increases. What took them ages to go into mine and mine gold or silver or farm land and plant stuff, grow it, all that. We can do it massively faster, millions of times faster than they could have done it back then, because we have all this technology and farming equipment and engines and tractors and airplanes and jets, all this stuff to get stuff done at the blink of an eye. Internet, make a phone call. Back in Rome, I got to write a letter, give it to this guy on horseback, and he's going to take it 500 miles that way. I'll see you in several days. A week, a couple weeks or something. Right now, let me send this email off. Let me ask the boss via email. Boss, is it okay to do this? Yes, okay, no problem. Guys, we're going to do this. Boss gave me the okay. Done. Got an email back in 5 minutes. That's why we're not going to be the great American Empire for 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 years like the Roman Empire. This ends very soon and very abruptly. As technology increases, so does everything else, and so does what seems like our perception of speed and time, because you can get everything done at the blink of an eye, whereas 2,000 years ago, you couldn't. So there was a little time restraint that allowed them to expand longer and allowed the decline to last longer before it finally collapsed. It ain't going to be that way here. It's going to be much, 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 much faster, and I mean like sneak up to you in the middle of the night. Sneak up to you in the middle of the night, and that middle of the night's coming here shortly, soon. We're talking a few years at best, probably much, much sooner. Gold and silver in your possession now is the only thing that can save you. That's it. Take care.